Why do so many men collapse when life crushes them? Why do others emerge sharper, stronger, and more dangerous than before? The problem is not the pain, it is how you interpret it. Today, we expose why hardship is not your punishment, but your proving ground. When life breaks you, it is not punishment. The heavens do not waste their wrath on the insignificant. No, life strikes to measure your worth, to discover whether you are clay or iron. The weak collapse at the first blow. They cry, they beg, they search for comfort in others. And in that weakness, reveal their fate. They will forever be ruled, forever dependent, forever broken. But the strong understand silence. They do not shout their pain. They do not parade their wounds for pity. They retreat inward, sharpening their mind as a blade against stone. Each scar becomes a weapon. Each failure becomes a lesson. And when the silence ends, they emerge not merely alive, but unshakable, feared, and revered. Remember, this life will not spare you. To believe otherwise is childish. But if you see every hardship as a punishment, you betray yourself as weak. If you see it as a test, as an opportunity, then you walk the path of power. The world bows not to those who suffer, but to those who endure. And in silence, the strong sharpen their crown. Life's blows are not punishments, but examinations. Listen carefully. When life breaks you, most men make the same mistake. They take it personally. They see misfortune as punishment, as if some hidden hand in the sky has singled them out for misery. They cry, "Why me? Why must I suffer? Why is the world against me?" But this is the delusion of the weak. Life does not punish you. Life does not even care for you. Life tests you. Every blow, every fall, every betrayal, it is not punishment. It is examination. Think of the blacksmith. He does not punish the iron with fire and hammer. He tests it. He tempers it. He strikes it until the metal reveals its true nature. If the steel is false, cracks. If it is genuine, it hardens. The same principle rules your life. Hardship is the hammer, and you are the steel. If you break, it means you were weak, unworthy, unfit for command. But if you endure, if you take the strike and grow sharper, you prove your strength. This is the truth the weak cannot stomach. They imagine themselves victims, singled out for cruelty. But history does not honor victims. It honors those who endure the test. The empire, the throne, the crown, the victory, these belong to men who survived the blows of fate and refused to interpret them as punishments. Caesar betrayed by Brutus, Napoleon in exile, Machiavelli himself in chains. Were these punishments? No, they were tests, and tests reveal the quality of a man. You must learn to see hardship with cold eyes. When betrayal cuts you, do not cry that it is unfair. When poverty drags you down, do not wail that fate is unjust. When failure humiliates you, do not curse fortune. None of this is punishment. It is the proving ground where life asks one question: are you weak, or are you strong? Imagine two men, both struck by misfortune. The first cries, curses, and seeks pity. He interprets his pain as punishment, and in this very act he condemns himself. He hands away his dignity. He becomes a slave to misery. The second man, struck by the same misfortune, does not cry. He does not curse. He does not speak. He understands this is not punishment. It is examination. He suffers in silence. He gathers his strength. He sharpens his mind. He endures, and in enduring, he proves he is fit to rise. Which of these two men does the world remember? Which does history follow? Always the second. Life has no interest in fairness. It is not a judge rewarding the good and punishing the wicked. It is a battlefield. The blows you receive are not punishments for sin or reward for virtue. They are the weapons of fate cutting into your flesh to see what you are made of. If you are brittle, you shatter. If you are strong, you sharpen. This is why the great men of history were never spared suffering. Do you think Alexander conquered without exhaustion? Do you think Hannibal crossed the Alps without agony? Do you think Marcus Aurelius sat on his throne without grief? All of them were broken by life, again and again. But they did not call it punishment. They saw it as the test that separates rulers from the ruled. And so the weak will forever believe they are cursed. They will whine, they will pray, they will beg for mercy. But those who understand, those who see life's cruelty as examination, these are the men who cannot be destroyed. For every strike is proof, every wound is evidence. Every scar is a certificate of survival. The weak crave pity and comfort. Look at the weak when life crushes them. Their instinct is never to endure in silence, never to sharpen themselves, but to cry out for pity. Their first reaction is always to seek comfort from others, as if comfort were strength, as if sympathy could rescue them. The weak crave pity the way a starving dog craves scraps from the master's table. They beg for soft words, for someone to soothe them, for arms to cradle them. But mark this well. Comfort is not salvation. Comfort is poison. It numbs the wound but never heals it. It softens the will instead of hardening it. The weak believe that when they complain loudly enough, when they present their suffering to the world like a public spectacle, the world will care. They hope that pity will elevate them, that comfort will restore them. Yet history does not remember the pitiful, the beggars of sympathy, the collectors of compassion. These are erased from memory. The world does not follow the cries of the weak. It follows the silence of the strong. Why do the weak beg for comfort? Because comfort absolves them of responsibility. To say, I suffer, and receive pity is easier than to say, I suffer, and endure it. To receive comfort is to be told, it is not your fault. You are not to blame, you are excused. And this is the hidden desire of the weak, to escape accountability, to hide their cowardice under the cloak of victimhood. Comfort provides them with this illusion. They are no longer required to rise, to fight, to grow. They are permitted to remain small. But comfort is a trap. The more they consume it, the more they depend on it. Like a drug, it creates the illusion of relief while corroding the strength to endure. And so the weak spiral downward, begging endlessly for more pity, more sympathy, more validation. Their weakness becomes a performance, their suffering a currency with which they purchase attention. But power cannot be bought with pity. Authority cannot be built upon comfort. This is why the weak never rise, why they remain trapped in their misery, repeating the same cries until their voice fades into nothing. You can see this truth in every age. The weak have always sought someone to soothe them. In ancient courts, the courtiers who failed to rise in power would cling to each other, whispering about their unfair misfortune, seeking comfort in shared weakness. In war, the soldier who feared death most was always the loudest, begging for reassurance, needing the comfort of others to shield him from his own terror. In modern times, it is the same men cry for attention, cry for sympathy, cry for comfort. Their voices flood the world, but none of them will be remembered. For the weak mistake comfort for strength. They believe that if others see their suffering and give them pity, it somehow validates their worth. But worth is not given. Worth is proven. Comfort cannot prove you strong. It only proves you needy. It only shows that you cannot stand alone. This is why the weak always gather in crowds. Misery loves company, and comfort is easiest to find among other weak men. They huddle together, telling each other that their pain is unfair, that life has treated them too cruelly, that they deserve kindness, not struggle. They form a brotherhood of excuses, united not by strength but by fragility, and in this fragility, they rot. No empire was built on pity. No crown was won through comfort. No throne was claimed by men who sought sympathy. The world belongs to those who do not beg. The throne is taken by those who do not seek comfort but endure its absence. The weak are too quick to cry for relief, too eager to present their suffering as proof of innocence. But suffering itself proves nothing. What matters is not that you suffer, but how you respond. The weak reveal themselves by their cries, their endless hunger for comfort, their need for others to validate their pain. The strong understand this truth. Pity makes you dependent, comfort makes you soft, and sympathy makes you forget the necessity of silence. But the weak are blind. They cannot see the chains they wrap around themselves. They mistake pity for love, comfort for strength, sympathy for honor. And so they remain bound, forever unable to rise, forever begging for the very poison that keeps them powerless. The strong withdraw into silence. When life strikes the strong, they do not run to others. They do not parade their wounds in search of pity. They do not beg for comfort. Instead, they withdraw into silence. Understand this well, silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon. It is the fortress of the strong, the chamber where the mind sharpens itself without interference from the noise of the world. The weak cry because they want to be heard. The strong remain silent because they want to think. The weak seek comfort from words. The strong seek clarity from stillness. In their silence, they are not hiding from pain. They are dissecting it. They are studying the strike, the failure, the betrayal, and from that study they carve lessons sharper than steel. Look to the great men of history, and you will see this pattern repeated. When Caesar was betrayed, he did not scream to the heavens for pity. He carried his silence to the very end. When Machiavelli himself was cast out of power, imprisoned, and tortured, he did not waste breath begging for sympathy. He withdrew into his silence and sharpened his pen, writing the very words that would outlive kings and emperors. Silence is the workshop of power. It is the crucible where pain is melted down and reforged into wisdom. The strong understand that words, when wasted on complaints, lose their value. To speak of suffering is to spend energy that should be invested in rebuilding the self. This is why they refuse to cry out. They know that noise achieves nothing. Noise gathers pity, but silence gathers strength. In silence, they reclaim control. In silence, they prepare for their return. Consider the battlefield. The soldier who panics, who screams, who cries, spreads fear to all around him. But the soldier who remains silent, even when wounded, commands respect. His silence is not denial of pain, it is mastery over it. He proves that he belongs to a different class of men, a class that bends suffering to their will instead of being broken by it. This same law governs all of life. The strong do not rush to explain their hardships. They do not broadcast their misfortune to win sympathy. They let the world wonder. They let their silence speak louder than their cries ever could. And in that silence, they are not idle. They are sharpening. They are taking the lessons of defeat, the sting of betrayal, the fire of humiliation, and transforming them into weapons. When they emerge, they are not the same. They are more dangerous. Silence is discipline. It prevents the strong from wasting themselves in emotion. It forces them inward, where the true work begins. In silence, a man confronts himself without distraction. He faces his weakness directly. He sees clearly what must be destroyed, what must be built, what must be sharpened. This is why silence is feared. The man who suffers in silence is unpredictable, unmeasured, unrateable. His enemies cannot know his strength, nor his next move. And that mystery makes him formidable. The weak, by contrast, expose themselves with every cry. Their pain becomes public knowledge. Their fear becomes visible. Their need for comfort reveals their fragility. But the strong deny the world that satisfaction. Their silence keeps their enemies guessing. Their silence conceals their wounds, disguises their strategy, protects their dignity. It is a mask, but beneath the mask, the mind is alive, sharpening itself in secret. There is also power in solitude. The strong withdraw not only into silence but into separation. They step back from the noise of the crowd, from the endless chatter of the weak, from the empty words of comfort. In solitude, they reclaim their focus. In solitude, they strip away illusions. Alone in silence, they confront the raw truth of their condition and begin to master it. Weak men fear this solitude because it exposes their emptiness. Strong men seek it because it refills them. And when the strong return from their silence, they do not return empty. They return sharper, harder, more ruthless. Their silence has armed them with clarity. Their solitude has armored them with resilience. The world will see their scars, but not hear their cries. The world will feel their strength, but never understand the depths of their silence. This is how the strong transform suffering into dominance. Pain is the crucible of power. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is the fire that shapes you, the crucible that strips away weakness and leaves behind only what is worthy of survival. Those who fear pain fear their own transformation. They want strength without struggle, wisdom without suffering, power without sacrifice. But such fantasies belong to children. Every man who has held power, every empire that has risen, every dynasty that has endured, was forged in the flames of pain. You must understand this: comfort breeds softness, luxury breeds decay, ease produces men who are fragile, cowardly, and weak. But pain is the teacher that cannot be ignored. Pain makes a man aware of his limits, and in that awareness, it offers him the chance to push beyond them. Without pain, there is no growth. Without pain, there is no greatness. The strong do not resent pain. They welcome it. They see it not as punishment, but as proof that they are still being tested, still being refined. Think of the soldier on campaign, marching through mud, starving, freezing, bleeding. The weak curse the march, dream of home, beg for mercy, but the strong embrace it. They know that the hardship is shaping them into something unbreakable. The battlefield does not reward comfort, it rewards endurance. And in life, as on the battlefield, pain is the only forge hot enough to create true power. History provides endless examples. Alexander did not become great by sleeping in silk sheets. He hardened himself with endless campaigns, carrying the same burdens as his soldiers. Spartans were not raised in luxury. They were raised in pain, trained from childhood to see suffering as preparation. Even the philosopher, King Marcus Aurelius, wrote his meditations not from peace, but while carrying the crushing weight of empire, facing loss, betrayal, and war. Their greatness did not come despite pain. It came because of it. Pain is a ruthless teacher. It does not flatter. It does not lie. It reveals who you are when every comfort has been stripped away. When you are cold, hungry, broken, abandoned, what remains of you? If nothing remains, then you were nothing to begin with. But if something within you still refuses to surrender, still fights, still endures, then pain has revealed the truth. You are stronger than even you believed. The weak resist pain. They fight against it as though resistance will erase it. But resistance without purpose only increases suffering. The strong do not resist pain. They absorb it, they study it, they make it their ally. They understand that every wound is knowledge, every scar is memory, every hardship is an opportunity to grow sharper. Pain does not humiliate them. It instructs them, and instruction is the path to power. Do not misunderstand. Pain is not meant to be romanticized. It is not pleasant. It burns, it tears, it humiliates. But it is necessary. Just as ore must be melted to reveal pure metal, a man must be broken down to discover what remains unbreakable within him. The crucible is harsh, but the result is strength that cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed, cannot be inherited. It can only be earned through suffering. This is why those born into ease rarely become rulers of destiny. They inherit wealth, they inherit titles, they inherit comfort, but they do not inherit power. Power comes from pain. Without the crucible, they remain soft, pretending at strength, but collapsing when tested. Only those who have faced the fire, endured the blows, survived the storms, can stand unshaken when the world demands proof. The weak flee from pain because they see only its cruelty. The strong embrace it because they see its gift. Pain strips away illusions. It removes excuses. It exposes the raw, brutal truth about who you are. And in that exposure lies opportunity. If you accept the lesson, you grow. If you reject it, you remain a child. Pain offers no middle ground. It will either destroy you, or it will shape you into something indestructible. The crucible of pain does not discriminate. It burns everyone equally, but only those who endure with silence and sharpened minds rise from it transformed. Only they gain the power that pain offers. Strength lies in perception. Strength does not begin in the body. It does not begin in the arms, the chest, or the sword in your hand. Strength begins in the mind, and the mind is ruled by perception. How you see what happens to you determines whether you rise or whether you collapse. The same hardship that breaks one man becomes the foundation of another's greatness. The difference is not in the blow. It is in the interpretation. When the weak are struck, they see punishment. They see cruelty. They see fate conspiring against them, and in that belief, they surrender. Their perception turns them into victims before the battle is even fought. The strong, when struck by the same blow, see examination. They see opportunity. They see the test that will reveal their worth, and in that belief, they endure. Their perception transforms pain into fuel, silence into strength, and scars into lessons. Consider this carefully. Reality itself is indifferent. Life does not whisper to you, "This is punishment," or "This is opportunity." Life strikes, and the rest is perception. If your perception is weak, you will break. If your perception is strong, you will sharpen. That is why two men can suffer the same betrayal. One spends years drowning in bitterness. The other uses the betrayal to sharpen his resolve and rise above all rivals. The blow was the same. The outcome was perception. This is why rulers, conquerors, and thinkers guard their perception as fiercely as their armies. They know the mind is the first battlefield. Lose there, and the rest is already lost. But if perception is mastered, if you train yourself to see trials not as punishments but as tests, then every blow becomes an ally, every failure becomes an education, every setback becomes an opening for power. The weak cannot grasp this. Their eyes are clouded by self-pity. They look at hardship and say, "The world is against me." They look at loss and say, "I am cursed." They look at failure and say, "I am worthless." Their perception chains them tighter than any iron. They cannot move because they believe they cannot move. They cannot rise because they believe the world has chosen them to fall. They remain powerless, not because of the blows they received, but because of the story they told themselves about those blows. The strong reject such illusions. When hardship arrives, they do not ask. They ask, "What can this teach me? How can this sharpen me? How can I turn this to my advantage?" Their perception transforms them into alchemists of fate, turning suffering into gold. They know the blow itself is neutral, but their interpretation can either weaken them or crown them. That is the secret. Power does not come from what happens to you. Power comes from how you perceive what happens to you. History is filled with men who mastered perception. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, surrounded by betrayal, war, and plague, wrote not of despair, but of endurance. He trained his perception until every misfortune became fuel for philosophy and discipline. Napoleon, exiled and humiliated, did not perceive himself as finished. He saw exile as preparation for return, and he did return, shaking Europe once more. Even Machiavelli, stripped of office and tortured, did not perceive his fall as the end. He perceived it as the chance to write, to craft words sharper than swords, words that still echo centuries later. The masses will never understand this law. They live enslaved by their own interpretations, forever mistaking trials for punishments. They let perception weaken them, soften them, destroy them from within. And because perception rules action, their lives become proof of their own defeat. But those who command perception command themselves, and those who command themselves cannot be broken by anything the world delivers. Strength lies not in what you can lift, in what you can endure without surrendering your perception. Strength lies not in how many battles you win, in how many defeats you reinterpret into preparation. Strength lies not in avoiding pain, but in seeing pain as the crucible of greatness rather than the chains of punishment. The weak fail because they look at pain and say, "I am finished." The strong look at pain and say, "I am being tested." Perception is the dividing line between rulers and ruled, between the weak who beg for comfort and the strong who sharpen in silence. So now you see it clearly. Life does not punish you, it examines you. The weak misinterpret the blows, rushing to beg for pity and comfort, exposing their fragility with every cry. The strong withdraw into silence, sharpening their mind, mastering themselves in solitude, while the world underestimates them. Pain becomes their crucible, stripping them bare, burning away weakness, and forging a strength that cannot be faked. And at the heart of it all lies perception, the power to choose whether a strike is your downfall or your proving ground. The world belongs to those who understand this law, to those who do not seek to escape pain, but to harness it, to those who see silence not as retreat but as preparation, to those who recognize that every trial is a test, and every test is an invitation to rise higher. History forgets the comfort seekers, the pitiful, the broken, but it immortalizes the few who turn suffering into strategy, wounds into weapons, and perception into power.